All right, so welcome for joining us at the Coaching for Sustainable Change. And this is a local collaboration that we have between Texas ACMP and the local Texas International Coaching Federation chapters. And as part of International Coaching Week, we are very excited to present to you this agenda that we have here today. The agenda, we will have a welcome, and we've got an update on a global task force overview of the ICF and ACMP global efforts. We'll have a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll move into some introductions and certainly how you can get involved with ICF and ACMP Texas. We do have a poll that actually you don't have to, we've switched to Zoom for the poll, so please disregard the pollev.com. Of course, you can certainly go there. We just won't be able to see the results. So let's go ahead and get started. Manny, take it away.
All right. So good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are, or good evening as well, because we do have somebody from Iran who's logged in, which is awesome to see. We would like everybody to keep yourself on mute, if at all possible. We want to avoid any distractions moving forward, as far as for the panelists during their session. We're going to engage in the conversation via the chat. So I'll be monitoring the chat as we're going through, keeping everything abreast there. There will be a poll EV question that is active right now, and you can go to pollev.com/ACMP Texas. And the question is, what do you have for the panelists as they go through? And what we'll do is that we'll take the top questions from that, and we'll ask the panelists at the end in the 15-minute Q&A session. We're looking forward to the session. Looking forward to the synergy that we're providing as far as coaching and change management. They go hand in hand, and between Magda and Greg, we will have that discussion here. So looking forward to it. All right, let's go on to the next slide, Aurora, because I think it's yes, this is where I introduce myself, where I'm saying, hey, that's me. That's the nice version of me. Right? I actually do smile. Don't get it wrong. This was just a picture that was taken. But that is me right there. And as you can see, next to me here is Miss.
Oh, Aurora Geis. Yes.
Aurora Geis.
So yes, Manny, thank you so much. I just want to let you all know that it's been a great opportunity to partner with Manny, who is currently the president at ACMP Texas. And he has just been tremendous in really wanting to advance the synergy between both coaching and change management. And we have had many conversations related to the importance of coaching, as he too has been engaged in many conversations with organizations and leaders. So Manny, thank you for your continued just energy and focus and partnership as we expand this discipline between change management and coaching. And so now it is my pleasure to talk to you a little bit at a very high level in terms of what we've been up to with ACMP and ICF Global Task Force. This is a little bit of our journey that we have had. There are more updates here, but basically we started with the idea back in 2018. It was kind of like the Herb Kelleher back of the napkin conversation on there's so much change that is happening. And obviously, as we catapult into, or fast forwarding in terms of where we are today, we have seen the significant change in not only people having to adapt to the pandemic, but also the digital transformation that has really, it has really dominated the way that we do work, especially remote work. And so this task force has been looking specifically at the synergy between coaching and change management. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like. But basically, Since 2018, you'll notice that we've had 3 partnerships that have grown, one in Canada, in Ukraine, and in the United States. And these partnerships are continuing to advance the synergies between coaching and change management. If you have not heard about the ICF Converge Lab that was recently done in 2021, I would encourage you all to ask for a copy of that presentation, because it was very significant in terms of some of the synergy points that were conducted. What I'll also share with you all is that we have a group, a global task force that is focused on 4 key areas. These 4 teams, one is really focused on the articulation of change and coaching, the coaching relationship. We also have a team that's focused on really evangelizing the efficacy of coaching and change. Our 3rd team is focused on accelerating chapter and community-based partnerships. That's part of what you're seeing here today between here in Texas with Manny and myself. And then the last is operationalizing the global change and the coaching community. So stay tuned to more updates. We want to encourage you to get involved, and we'll have more information on the slide towards the end of this conversation. So with that said, I'd like to transition into some introductions. And I'd like to first introduce Magda Mook. And for those of you who already know Magda, I'm going to share with you that she acts as a strategic partner for ICF's leadership, including the board and a variety of committees and task forces. She specializes in strategic planning, excuse me, cultural competence, ethics, international affairs, and board governance. She also oversees organizational budgets and manages professional staff of the ICF. And Magda is also a trained coach. She received her training from the College of Executive Coaching and also holds a certificate in the fundamentals of systemic coaching. Magda brings over a decade of experience in fundraising, consulting, and association management. So prior to joining International Coaching Federation in October of 2005, Magda, I can't believe it's been that long, short, honestly. But since then, she's held the position of Assistant Director of National Policy and Director of Development and the Council of State Governments, which is a national association of state officials in 3 branches of government. And during her tenure at CSG, Magda also worked closely with the U.S. Asia Environmental Program, overseeing the grants program in 11 nations of Southeast Asia. Magda, we are delighted to have you here today, and we can't wait to hear this ensuing discussion. So now
Thank you so much for inviting me. Always happy to come to Texas.
Wonderful. And Manny, I'll turn it over to you to introduce Greg.
All right, and it's my pleasure to introduce Greg Voller. He is the president of ACMP Global currently. He is the senior director at Gagan McDonald, correct? Did I get that title right, Greg?
You got it, Manny, yes.
Oh, okay, there we go. There we go. So, and he has been in the change spectrum for a couple decades now. Looking forward. What was that?
Too many decades.
Too many decades.
Yes.
That's why I just said a couple. I didn't want to show, give them your age right now, Greg. But looking forward to listening to what he has to say in this collaboration effort that we're providing. Okay, so awesome. And without further ado, I want to bring in the moderator for this session. She is a very dear friend of mine. I've known her for a decade, close to that, maybe probably even more. We used to work together over at Chevron, and now we are all doing our own thing. Her name is Dr. Melanie Rodriguez. She is professional certified coach. She is an ICF Houston chapter member, and she's going to moderate this session between Magda and Greg. Melanie, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, I thank you for the introduction, and I am excited to be here with you all as we have this conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with Magda and Greg. This is going to be a great conversation because you're right. As it's been said, there is so much going on these days. There is a lot of change in the world in general, but then also if you really think about the way that we're working and the amount of coaching and the amount of change management that's happening across enterprises, there's significant amounts of things going on. So looking forward to this. As we get into this conversation with Magda and Greg, I encourage you all to really think about questions that you might have for the panelists. And as we do so, Manny mentioned the poll EV that is available. So their link is in the chat, pollev.com/ACMP Texas. As you can go in there, add your questions for the panelists as we're having this conversation. You also have the opportunity to vote those the questions that have already been entered up or down. So if you don't have a question yourself, but you are interested in hearing responses to questions that other people have posed, you have the opportunity to update that as well. So without further ado, we'll kick it off with a couple of starter questions for Magda and Greg, and give you the opportunity to really think about what you want to hear about as well. So our first question to kick us off is, we know that there is a ton going on in terms of change in the world in general, but we really want to just take a moment to take a step back and think about the state of business in the world today. So how have you seen, Magda and Greg, how have you seen the state of global business evolving? Greg, for you as a change management professional, Magda in the world of coaching, over the last few years, what have you seen and what's coming up on the horizon?
I'll start, Melanie and Magda, and please we'll work together here with this as well. First and foremost, it's so great to be here with everybody today, and thank you again for the invitation. We're all feeling what's happening in the world today, I believe, right? And I think we are now in a time of expansive transformation in so many ways. And I also think as part of that, there's an awakening by organizations at all sorts of different kinds of organizations of a clarity of dysfunctionality that organizations have. I think they're waking up to that in many ways, and they're recognizing significant needs and opportunities in order for them to grow and thrive. The need to change and transform themselves as well too. So I think that that's one big thing that we're all feeling in a lot of ways. I think another piece that I just wanted to share in my opening comments here as well too is that very much driven by COVID, and I recognize this is different in different parts of the world. We have entered, I think, a new era where the worker has now become first. So whether you call that an employee or a contractor or a gig-like type of individual, this era is now heavily upon us, where individuals have so much greater latitude in choices and opportunities in identifying and doing work for organizations they would like to do so with. Now, that is, I think, a sharp difference than even where we were 5, 10, 15 years ago with that. And I think it means it has tremendous impacts for how all of us, in work we do, serve organizations. And so it's created a different mindset, a different approach, in different ways now that organizations need to relate to these individuals to be producers, if you will, for them as well too. So those are some starting points that I'd see, and I certainly want to, Magda, get your voice into this as well too. What some things you'd like to share, please.
Thank you. And same from me. Thank you so much for the invitation, and always good to be in a good company of Greg's. It may be a very boring panel because I think we're going to be agreeing on a lot of things, me and Greg. But to add or build up on what Greg said is, I also think that because of those changes happening around us, because of the different pressures, it's not like the pressures did not exist before, but there are different pressures. And at the same time, I think that recognition and awareness of change management and coaching are greater. And for that reason, I think that we have a tremendous opportunity to offer services of our respective organizations and professionals to support that change. Because it's happening, because it is a focus on the worker. You're absolutely right about it, Greg. And that means there is a different responsibility and different expectation for a leader. Right? We, as Aurora showed us before the journey, we started 2018, visionaries we were, right? Because change management and coaching, in fact, are really going hand in hand, and one can help the other significantly. And I think that it's not overstatement to say that, frankly, right now they have to go hand in hand, because otherwise neither one is potent enough to be supportive in a way that the support is needed from both change management professionals, from coaches, but most importantly, clients that hire us to support that change within their organizations.
Excellent points. And I think that you're both spot on, just in terms of really thinking about how the thought around business has really changed, and the emphasis around people, the emphasis around making sure that we have the support that we need for both change management and from a coaching perspective has really evolved over the years. Organizations are certainly starting to put people first more often, and it has become a huge piece. So down that lane, what is your thoughts around why this collaboration between ICF and ACMP is important?
Because Greg and I like each other.
Yes.
Right. No, seriously, ICF started cooperation with the Human Capital Institute, HCI, around research on how coaching shows up in organizations. We started with just very generic survey first, then there was more into, okay, what does it mean for internal coaches? Then what does it mean for the workforce of now and the future? Bringing younger people, having multiple generations. And then we came to the yet another iteration of the study, and that being so many organizations reporting, not to us, not to ACMP, but everywhere, that they are in some stage of change management initiative or change initiative, right? And that so many of those initiatives are not successful. And because of that research, we found out that there are three major reasons why the initiative is either successful or not. And we also found that those three particular pieces are the reasons why most people engage in coaching. So we were like, this is something that's important to recognize, that coaching can be a support mechanism for change initiative, and vice versa, equally important, if coaches were more familiar with change management tools, approaches, philosophies, they can support their clients, who often are organizational leaders, in a way that it's more sustainable and, quite frankly, leads to more successful, maybe faster way of arriving at what the goal of the initiative might be. Greg, what would you say?
Yes, what a boring panel we're going to be here, as I agree with you wholeheartedly. But let me add some additional color to that. So well said, Magda. Why it's important is because we have a fundamental core belief that what we do, what change leaders do, what coaches do, is that we have a significant impact on shaping the experiences, the beliefs, and ultimately the behaviors of people. And even, to Melanie, your first question about what we're seeing in the marketplace, so much as this is being maybe somewhat falsely, being brought back to, well, really what it is, it's a culture transformation. Well, I would challenge that because organizations, too many organizations are trying to take the easy way out. And frankly, oh, what is company X or organization Y doing on culture? Because we want to kind of mimic it. Whenever I hear organizations trying to mimic other organizations around beliefs and behaviors, I think they're going down a dangerous path because they're not bringing their unique self then to truly who they are and what they offer to their markets and the world as well too. And so this is why I believe our relationship is so vital and important, because we have this common goal and we recognize that our capabilities and our competencies marry together very well at the group level and at the individual level, so that we're collectively creating a movement within an organization as well too. And so I think that's I think from a service offering and the value we bring, I think that's why it's critically important, for how we connect, continue to connect within our capabilities with our interdisciplines. And the other one piece I would add to that too, team, is that I think it's also incredibly important because we have an important, I think, mutual relationship to say, and then what value are we bringing to the firm or to the organizations that we're serving? And as we mutually subscribe to this focus on behavioral outcomes, we collectively have that opportunity then to connect that into how is that impacting organizational success. And so I think that's an opportunity where the more that we are allies within that together, we then we create more significant value then for those organizations as well too.
Yeah, all great points. But I'm gonna ask to your points. I love that y'all are agreeing because it just means we're on the same page, and that it definitely highlights the alignment around the importance of the work that's being done here. But to spice it up a little bit, perfect, I would love to hear from you some examples of where this has been successful. So if you've seen some of those collaborations happen, can you give us an example of where you've seen these synergies between coaching and change management really influence the outcome of something that has been worked on?
I see it every day, truthfully, and frankly, I hope all of you see it every day as well too, in both the opportunities and where those can kind of come together. I am involved right now with a few engagements, but one that I can bring to the surface here, generally speaking, is very much an organization that requires both a focus on transformation and then the leadership capabilities in order to help deliver on that. And so this is an acquisition of two firms, and really the integration process is really looking at those cultural attributes, the integration of processes, et cetera. And so we can, from the change leader in us, will look at really where are the what is the current state, what is the desired state, what's the pathway to get there, and what are the points of acceptance and resistance along the way. So we can collectively look at that experience map. However, or in addition to, I should say, is that we recognize that that individuals and small groups have pivotal roles in order to be catalysts and reinforcers and able to break through obstacles that are in the way as well too. And so that's where I think that more focused coaching opportunity exists, and it not even exists, it's imperative, within an overall success component that as well too. And I've been in all too many change activities where there's both, from a leader's perspective, there's both the public view of the leader and then I want to say it for this sake, behind the closed door view of the leader. And sometimes, as I think we would all recognize, those leaders might not even know each other because they seem like almost two different people. And the incredible need is to help that leader become her authentic self, his authentic self, in order to effectively lead an organization through transformation and change. And when those components are not at a positive moving or attraction building type of way, back to what Magda said, you are not setting yourself up for success as well too.
Yeah, you know, I think that, and this is what our task forces and different sub teams were working on so far, is to see where are the points where change management and coaching are so intertwined that one can really amplify the other. What Greg said about the leaders, we just said earlier in our conversation, there is a very different demand, or I should say a demand for a very different leader these days. Self-awareness, empathy, vulnerability. Did you hear that as being the definitions of leadership several years ago? Not at all. And now that's what's expected, right? That's what's being almost required in a leader, and coaching can help with that. And at the same time, it is so true that for the change initiative to be successful, there has to be a process. There has to be a plan, you know, the milestones, KPIs, what have you. That's what change management comes so beautifully into a conversation. So it's almost a locked step, right? It's like, it's a journey. Change is a journey. So every leader who is in charge of it, and every person who's in charge of a part of it, needs support. And that support may come from change management expert. It may come from a coach. It may come at the same time from both. And that's brilliant. That's brilliant because it only means that there is greater focus, and for that reason, that could be a, as we said, faster or more effective delivery of results. Same with the results, you know. Almost no initiative does not require some tweaking and some change along the way, right? That's another so important piece that sometimes can be missed in coaching and so beautifully brought about by change management individuals. And how to do it may be more supported by the coaching initiative and coaching relationship than change management. So they are really, we were laughing that we are cousins. We are cousins, and we're first cousins. I don't know exactly, I'm not American, so I don't know this first cousin, second cousin stuff, but we're cousins nonetheless.
We don't know it either. It's okay.
Okay, good.
It's so confusing. However, I absolutely hear what you're saying, because when Greg was talking about the framework that is the approach, it's very similar to what I would expect in a coaching environment, right? Where are you going? Where are you at? How are you going to get there? All of those things, and recognizing the risks, recognizing the acceptances, all things that we talk about in a coaching session, right? So I absolutely hear that. Thank you so much. Well, let's switch it up just a little bit, and this time we're going to ask a question to the participants. We have a poll here that it will pop up in your Zoom as a window, and the question that we want to ask for our participants is, in your experience, what are some of the challenges that arise in organizational change efforts? Whether you're approaching that as a change management practitioner or as a coach, what are some of the things that you have seen? And this is multiple choice. You can pick as many as you like. We have lack of leadership commitment, employee resistance to change, communication ineffectiveness, or something else. If you have something else that you've seen arise as some of those challenges, feel free to choose that. And you can also throw that in the chat of the panel here. And we'll give you a few minutes to get some responses in here. But as you see, there's definitely, people have seen all kinds of things, right? It has, change is a difficult process that we help people to go through. We'd love to hear what your experience has been as you've seen some of these changes. We have about a little over half of our participants responded, and we're keeping going here. So what are some of the challenges that you've seen arise in organizational change efforts? And if you did put in other, there's a few of those that have been popped up here. Feel free to throw what some of that other stuff is in the chat as well. give it just one more second and then we'll show the responses here. Okay. All right, I'm going to close this poll and share these results with you. And you should see a window pop up as well with the responses that you've seen, that you have entered. So lack of leadership commitment, 58% of you have seen that. As employee resistance to change, just about half. Communication and effectiveness, 53%. And then 8 people have seen something other. Some of those others, commitment to follow through. Leaders think to change. Leaders seem to think that change is one and done. Many of us have experienced that. And communication courage, too often missing in action, actually naming and getting it on the table. What is really at the source of the issue? Yeah, digging down into that. So lots of great things that have come in through that. Magda, Greg, I would love to hear your thoughts on how this collaboration between coaching and change management can help to support some of these things that come up with change management efforts.
Sure, if I may start here, the top 3 that were offered in the poll, you will be shocked. They were exactly the findings of our research on change management. And so not surprising. I was one person who put other as well, and it is resources behind it, right? Sometimes change is not necessarily inexpensive or simply requires resources, that being time, effort, or money. But as we said, communication, especially commitment to follow through, as somebody suggested in the chat, these are issues that are very often called as one of the greatest reasons why people engage coaching. So it could be, again, very early in a change, in planning change initiative, to make sure that there is this commitment, that there is a plan for communication, that communication is transparent and is addressing potential fears and concerns of people being involved in that the case for change is being communicated effectively. So engaging a coach upfront can certainly help a leader, but also the entire team. ICF members here, that we released the core competencies for team coaching last year. We are working on a micro credential around that, and that's also very important in change management. So if we have a change initiative that is supported by team coaching, again, it may bring about better results, and maybe just lessen the pain point, and that's already a gain. That's already a big success if the pain points can be better identified and therefore proactively dealt with.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll just pick up on from, because I actually think one of the most significant responsibilities of leaders right now, maybe it's been this way always, but maybe more than ever, is to identify and analyze and really understand what are people's points of resistance. And then what do you do about that then as well too? And I think that's where, frankly, change leadership or effective leadership is so needed and so significant in today's world. And I think all too often is that our leaders don't understand that responsibility. They don't either understand it, they don't know how to do it, and or they have their own fear in doing so as well too. And so I think there's incredible need and opportunities to help those individuals move along, to build comfort, confident capability on their own within that. And I think the professional coaching community is sorely needed to make that happen as well too. What I would also just say is that this whole notion about, I think this aspect around, one of those pieces on there was around employee resistance. and pieces of that. I think that, and I saw in some of the comments too, Barry, you talking about thinking that change is one and done. Organizations are resistant to the fact that there's resistance in their organizations. Let me restate that. Organizations are resistant to the fact that there is resistance in their organizations. And so, there's a critical opportunity to recognize that resistance is a natural human condition. When we are being asked to move from some sort of comfort zone, homeostasis, if you will, to something else, of course, there's going to be a struggle. And there's an opportunity, I think, for organizations to more smartly recognize that, and then have both empathy and compassion for that, and then move that forward then as well too in that regard. And so I think that is something I'd comment on. And one more thing, I have a communications master's degree, and I only share that with you because I've been fascinated with the notion about how everything, when issues arise, everything gets clumped into this mega term communication, right? If in every postmortem or after action analysis that any one of us have done, if communication hasn't come up in the top 3 of items that went wrong, I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked with that. So I think what that actually says, though, for us is that it presents an opportunity for us to break that down. What does that actually mean? What do we really mean by communication effectiveness? And if we can shift that conversation for our organizations we serve, if we can shift that to how is communication informing, inspiring, and fulfilling professionally, folks, then I think we actually have set a new focus on the power of communication. And we frankly have maybe re-engineered to some degree a focus on leadership in the organization then as well too. And so I always just marvel at that. And for those of you that love quotes, George Bernard Shaw said many moons ago that the problem with communication is the illusion that it was done. And so I think we need to be thoughtful about that then as well too. So.
Yeah, and if I may add just one thing to what Greg said, because I think it's also important to recognize that sometimes being a leader of a change initiative or otherwise, it's not the most comfortable place at all, right? Communication may be one thing, and I have bruises and scratches to show for. I thought it was obvious, and no, it wasn't, because I thought the communication was done right. So, and I'm sure that there are many more stories around it. And at the same time, the resistance of the potentially within the organization has the flip side of resilience of the leader. Right, and that resilience again can be truly supported by the help of a coach. Just yesterday, I came across another quote. You inspired me, Greg, and that was a quote from Steve Jobs. Not my hero as a leader. Don't get me wrong. However, Steve Jobs said, "If you want to please everybody, do not be a leader. Sell ice cream." I think it's brilliant, but that is, sometimes the decision have to be made that not everybody will be happy with. And there is an need for, well, back to communication, resilience to say, we have that vision, it's important, it's good, it's relevant for the organization, that's why we need to do it. And oftentimes it's not the most comfortable place to have to deliver that message.
Yes, absolutely. And it is it tends to be a combination of all the uncomfortable things, right? Changes can be uncomfortable. The process that we go through with coaching can be uncomfortable. All of these are really a state we talked about a little bit about earlier, that state of vulnerability and feeling like you are at a loss of control while you're managing change can be difficult for people. So I absolutely hear you. I love that. The quote as well, and I definitely agree with you in terms of the leader piece. But yes, so Excellent. Thank you for that. We are going to get to some questions for the panelists from the participants. We have our poll EV where people have been putting in a couple of questions. I'll have Manny bring that up and we can highlight some of the questions that have been entered. And I see some are coming in through the chat as well. So we will touch on both. But I'll have Manny bring up poll EV questions.
Here we go.
We're going to start with this first question here at the top. So when ICF, and you can just click on that, Manny, and it'll pop up a little bigger there for us. When ICF coaches are either going through change or coaching on change, what is their standard framework that they rely on? And what attributes are seen as invaluable to navigate change? Greg, I'm gonna let you touch.
Well, I'll start since ICF was invoked. As you know, the framework for ICF is the core coaching competencies. Those competencies have been reworked last couple of years. From 11, we went to 8. They talk a lot about coaching mindset, and especially in that frame, the ability to understand the stages of change are showing up much more than, in my opinion, have been before. And but this is precisely why we're speaking of ACMP, and we are comparing our competencies and see where they are similar, where they are very engaged with each other, and for that reason that we can learn from each other. Many ICF coaches do use certain theories of change. Just about everything coaches are about is change. But at the same time, I think that learning from the best in the industry, that's being ACMP members, is very useful in this conversation as well.
I'd love to comment on that. And first and foremost, I thank you, Doug Flory, for raising that. And just Doug serves on the board of directors with me on ACMP as well too. So thank you, Doug, for that. And I think this is recognizing the source of the question here as well too. To build on Magda is where our task force is starting to provide some incredible input is to how those competencies on the coaching side with what we call the standard for change management as our framing guide, if you will, where are the intersection points, and admittedly within the change within the standard for change management, we haven't gone down to that developing step of really then what are the competency components of that there as well too. So that's been a value for us in seeing how ICF has gone down that path as well too. But where I'm excited about is where those convergence points then become, where those convergence points become, and how, as we're going to continue to evolve this the standard because the world is shifting, as we said at the onset of our conversation, and where there's opportunities where Magda used the term micro-credential earlier, where there are opportunities for where we look at micro-credentials almost in this space of convergence as well too. And as we see more and more like-minded professionals like all of us here kind of find themselves sort of coming to some of this convergence point themselves as well too. So there's a lot of things going on in both respective organizations within our profession. I think this question, thank you, Doug, is kind of getting us to that opportunity to even further find opportunities to align as well too.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Great question, Doug. Thank you for bringing that up. And this question came up in the chat as well with a little bit of context from Grace Gravestock. So, the context is talking about a type of resistance to change. I'm going to invite Grace to unmute and share a little bit of context behind this question. So the question is, what exercises have you found effective in helping employees take responsibility for their own careers? Grace, do you want to expand on that and ask?
Sure. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So I'm working with a project team of probably, I don't know, maybe 30 people. It's a city organization, so it's government. And one of the key messages that I'm emphasizing for the project sponsor is how he can address the uneasiness and uncertainty and anxiety that people have about their post-go-live role. And he's made it crystal clear that this is not about jobs going away, that everybody has a job, everybody has a place, build your career at the city, these are the best and brightest, so that's crystal clear. And so he was really surprised when this came up, when this is what I'm the new kid on the block, because I came in halfway through, and people, this is just one of the things I'm hearing in the water cooler talk. So I brought him some talking points, and to look at and to discuss and possibly approve, so that all the managers could be using them. And what came out of that conversation was something interesting, and it ties into something that somebody said at the very beginning of this, which is in this new world that we all live in, it's important for there to be a two-way conversation, even not just for independent consultants like me. Obviously that's not relevant, but for employees, it's a new world where in the old world, the leader would say, here's your job and go and do it. And in the new world, the employees it's really a requirement for there to be a conversation that goes two ways. And so the question is just, as I try to think about how to help these employees take responsibility for their own careers and have those conversations with their managers or supervisors, so that they can have a post-go-live role that suits them, or whatever, as the city changes and morphs and there's new jobs created. I clearly see that if they would just have some proactive conversations with their boss about what they want and who they are and what they're looking for, that would go a long way. But I'm putting together a change workshop, and that's why I phrased the question in this way. Are there any exercises that anyone has found that would be useful maybe in the context of a change management workshop for managers and supervisors to help them make this shift that, hey, personal responsibility for your own career, it's no longer just enough to just show up, but it's important to have that two-way conversation.
Grace, thanks for sharing that context. I think I'm listening with my change ear there in that, and I have some ideas, and I welcome others with their coaching ear, if you will, to add into this as well too. What I wonder, if I just even in your summary description there with that city manager, how that individual recognizes something I said before, that when you introduce something new to an organization and to people, their natural connection will be, well, that's different. So how that individual recognizes that component as well too. And while it may not fit exactly in their situation, a very powerful, since you were asking for practical exercises there with that as well too, a couple of different exercises that I've done with at the leadership level, so that they can recognize that their people that they're leading are going through this. It's called many different names, but I commonly call it the change 5 things exercise that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And that's where you identify, you ask people to really kind of use their physical appearance, if you will, to pair up and to change 5 things about their physical appearance, and then help self-identify. And as many of you know, right, is then when you get to a point of just people sort of saying that, there's always laughter in the room. And the point when people start putting back things to go back to normal is the point when the facilitator says, oh, I have another change that I'd like for you to experience. Right. And then the whole tone of the organization goes down, because you're asking people to change more things about their appearance. And so the lesson out of that is that it shows, to leaders and to people, is that change is perpetual. People are craving for an end stop. When will certainty come? And the reality is that the leaders need to say, we're working towards a new certainty. And to how you can help take responsibility for your own career is the opportunity to help define what that new certainty can be as well too, in that regard. I could go on with a couple other ideas, but I want to make sure that Magda and others have an opportunity.
Thank you.
To
Yeah, this is interesting because I think I've been writing recently quite a lot of articles about so much is expected of leaders. Who the heck has the leaders back? All right. So that's part of it. And I think I hear a little bit of this sentiment here that employee has to take responsibility for their own growth. They have, they shouldn't just wait for things to happen to them. Let's make them happen, right? Together. I still would say there still is a need for leaders to be more open to inviting the conversation that Grace you were talking about. I think that still some employees are afraid to have that conversation. So if there is an invitation from the other side, I think that could maybe facilitate the faster arrival at this conversation. One exercise I'll offer is that we do a lot. I do a lot of, instead of feedback, it's feed forward, right? And it is like, what do you appreciate about this other person? It's amazing to hear how when somebody sees, I admire your ability to do X, and they blossom and they say, how can we turn that into my career path? What would be the best place for me if that is my innate superpower? We all have our superpowers, but let's just apply them where they best serve. So, but I agree that it has to be, they say, two to tango, right? So, it has to be an openness and ability of both the boss, the supervisor, and a person reporting to them to have that conversation. Otherwise, somebody always will be unhappy.
And Grace and everybody, if I could maybe also add in another idea to this as well too, it marries together just with what Magda has shared there as well too, is how employees can, how this group of people, how they can connect together on where they're at within their change journey. And one thing that we often do is that when we work with groups is that we really work with them to really kind of understand where they are right now. And we ask them to pick one of 4 zones that they are most comfortable or where they're at right now. And if you're familiar with this approach, we ask them to either say, as of where you are right now, are you either in a zone of joy, a zone of comfort, a zone of learning, or a zone of panic? And we ask them to identify where they're at. And what we're hoping to see is that, frankly, that nobody's in the comfort zone. We're hoping to see that we have courageous people that will say, you know what, I'm going to raise my hand. I am in the panic zone and I need help with that as well too. And then we engage those in the joy and learning zones about how did they get there, and then how can they help their teammates in that approach and process as well too.
Excellent recommendations. Thank you. I'm so glad that we have the best of the best here. So thank you for that. Excellent. So the next 2 questions are kind of combined and related to ICF standards and the updates to the ICF standards here, specifically about how they impact international coaches. So Magda, I don't know if you want to touch on this or connect offline.
Sure, happy to connect offline because quite frankly, I have 0 control over sanctions, right? The only thing I can do is, and I have to, because that's my fiduciary responsibility, is to follow them. Having said that, please rest assured that we are doing everything we can to find ways of serving our members everywhere they are. So very happy to connect offline. And plus, I may not be the best person either. My regulatory team will be probably the best to connect. But come to me and I will connect you with people that need to respond to that.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Thank you. Okay. Those are the questions we had in our poll EV, but I definitely want to make sure that we give our participants one last opportunity. If you have anything else that you want to add, you can either raise your hand using the raise your hand feature in Zoom, or throw it in the chat. We can give a few minutes just to see if there's any other questions that pop up. We can stop sharing these questions here. And if not, what we'll do is jump over to say thank you to Magda and Greg for your time and your energy. And I know that there is so much work that is going on now to with this collaboration between ICF and ACMP. There is a lot of work going on. I know that Aurora at the beginning shared some information about the global work that's being done. In a minute, when we get to this last question, she'll also share some of the information about what's going on locally in Texas. But before we get there, there is one more question that has come up in the chat. So it says, given your expertise in both subjects, what would you think is a good way for a coach to get involved in change management? Great question. Thank you, Martha, for that. And I think we'll have both of you touch on that, but then also I think some of that will also pop up in the update that we're going to hear from Aurora as well. So, but please, Greg, Magda.
Well, yeah, I'd be happy to start to answer to Martha's question and hopefully question that maybe many of you have as well too. Well, first and foremost, we absolutely would encourage you to visit the ACMP website to learn more about our resources that we have available. I did put in the chat earlier a link to the Standard for Change Management, which is our source document, which is everything that our education and certification programs are based on as well too. So that would be a wonderful place, and to understand the education resources we have here as well too. We also, at the risk of not putting too many links in there in the chat, I will put one more in there. And ACMP does have our virtual conference coming up here at the end of June. We are going to stay virtual yet for at least one more year. But this is our mega premier event, a 4-day event that's a combination of live sessions emanating from around the world, as well as a number of on-demand sessions as well too. And our theme this year is embracing the changing world, focusing on diversity, technology, and adaptability. And so it's a great way to learn more as well too. And I think the other thing too, just the last thing I'll say is that I know both ACMP and ICF, I think, has tremendous volunteer opportunities. And the more that you, I think, can experience and connect with other folks that have that same type of professional focus, learn so much, absolutely learn so much from those experiences as well.
Thanks, Greg, and Martha, thank you for the question. I think that one other opportunity is do what we're doing right now. Invite ACMP colleagues to ICF event or vice versa, right? We did learn, Aurora, when she showed you the journey, mentioned that we did a survey of our respective members to find out that there is not only an interest, but there is already cross-pollination. There are some members of ICF who are already ACMP members, and there are ACMP members who are credentialed ICF members, and so on. So bringing that connection maybe closer to home, maybe another way for introducing in a very, I say gentle way, the two disciplines together.
Excellent. Thank you for that. All right. So let's find out more about what's going on locally with the task force and ICF and ACMP.
Well, thank you, Melanie and Greg, Magda, for your great insights in terms of how we can continue to solve challenges in the marketplace that we're all facing every single day. to Melanie's point, the partnership that we have locally between ACMP Texas and the chapters is continuing to have, Magda, as you said, those conversations. Where is that intersection, Greg, as you indicated, where we sustain the change? What are those practices? What are those opportunities to learn and grow? Just like the simple exercise that you gave today, Greg, is valuable for coaches as well. And so as a result of that, what we have in terms of our local team, we've got Manny and myself that are representing, I'm representing the global chapter or the global task force, and Manny representing ACMP Texas. But we also have on the call today, Tracy Winters, shout out. Hello, Tracy, who is the ICF Greater Austin president. I don't see Lindsay on here, but she has also been a part of this conversation. And Tony, we just want to recognize you for your support. He has continued to be a strong force in volunteering his time. And of course, Carissa Gay, the past president of ICF San Antonio, has continued to provide her great ideation and strategy as we continue to build agendas going forward. But a little bit about how we're forming our partnership. And I would encourage you all who are here today from other parts of the country to think about how you can create these partnerships. What we have identified for ICF is that we're really the people part of the change. And we want to be able to take these disciplines, advanced coaching practices whenever we meet with our ACM professional partners, as well as how we expand the opportunities for change managers to learn more about coaching, how to become certified, how to start the journey, what is coaching, what are our core competencies, learning things of that nature. But as we expand that, we also want to safeguard the ICF Code of Ethics, because it really is critical as we fundamentally are expanding coaching, and for people to understand there's a difference between coaching, consulting, and mentoring. Significant difference, and we are held to a very high standard in terms of our code of ethics. And for you to learn more, you can go to the coachingfederation.org website and Google the ICF Code of Ethics. It's a good read. As well as collaborating with our community of coaches, we want to be able to create, even now as we're coming out of the pandemic, more events that are not only online, but in person, where we can share the knowledge, we can share some of the challenges we're facing and some of the work. I know Manny and I have had conversations about some of the challenges he's had with individuals, and even asking the question, well, how do you get a leader that has leaders that are not necessarily on board? And we talk through some of those coaching challenges or coaching strategies. And then the last piece for ICF here in Texas is really raising the awareness of the profession and how we do unlock potential in people. And then Manny, you can chat a little bit about the organizational change. This is really in your area.
Yeah, I was about to say the synergy that exists between both of our organizations is so impactful, because when you look at coaching, you're looking at it from an individual or a very small group, while change management is thinking about the whole organization. Well, the whole organization is comprised of individuals. So as we look at this organizational change, what is the best way to do that? Well, the best way to do that is you start looking at individuals as themselves, right? The early adopters, the ones who are panicking, the one who are resisting. How do we engage those? How do we engage each one? Going through all of that. You just mentioned, me and you have had the conversation of where I've asked the question, okay, how would you handle this one particular person? Because you can think about change from an organizational perspective as a whole, but how do you do it for one individual? Very unique, very precise type of an approach. And I think that's where the collaboration and this partnership that we have is crucial to what we do. A lot of the junior change management practitioners, professionals, will work on the organizational level, very high level, high communication plans, doing all that. But some more senior change management professionals will get involved more into that coaching aspect. We'll get involved into that change at an individual level where we need to have access. We need to have that exposure in order for us to do that level of change. And I think that's where the partnership that we have and what we're trying to accomplish is beautiful in that perspective, because that's what we're trying to do. You know, as a coach, you're trying to change an individual. As a change manager, you're trying to change an organization. So you're still trying to change somebody. So,
Manny, I appreciate that. And I would add that we really try to create the awareness from a coaching perspective, like where are people? Where are they at as we kind of raise up that mirror in terms of the things that could be preventing them from unlocking their potential? But these are really the 4 core areas that we build our agenda on, our partnership on. Thought leadership doesn't necessarily have to be top down. These are going to be thought leaders that are contributing in the marketplace on how change is happening and how coaching is creating opportunities for more growth. And then the awareness piece is, again, as the global task force is focused on these key principles, how are we creating even more awareness where those synergies are? And really that comes to the networking. That's the webinars that we're having. These are the events that we are having. And we really want to encourage you to participate in those events. And then the last area is leading change. We really want to be able to identify what are these organizations or leaders that are going through. Barry is on line here, and he has been tremendous in really providing a lot of feedback in terms of how they have been leading change with his employment. He steps up authentically, vulnerably as a leader, and shares some of the very simple practices of how he's incorporating not only the process of change, but how he's also being willing to be coached through that process. So we really do appreciate those opportunities. And then finally, for you to get in touch, like if we want you to be involved, as Magda and Greg have mentioned, we really encourage you to come and volunteer, help us launch more webinars, more events that are creating these synergies. And so come to the website here with ACMP Texas. We also have our websites in Austin, Houston, and San Antonio, and we encourage you to send us a note. We'd love for you to be involved in our activities. And so with that, Melanie and Magda and Greg, any final comments?
Thank you so much for that overview of what's going on locally and globally earlier. But I think this is a tremendous opportunity for people who would like to know more about the other discipline to really get involved and to be part of the movement in creating this collaboration going forward. But I would love to hear from Magda and Greg. Any closing thoughts as we close out here?
You know, I think that this is truly, although we've been working for several years together hand in hand, it is still just the beginning. I saw somebody put in the chat, oh, let's have ICF at the ACMP conference and the other way around. We did, right? We did these labs before. They were phenomenal. We did the series of joint meetings before, very successful, very well attended. So I think where we are is still building that awareness of how important it is that our two organizations and our two professions are really supporting each other. So there is no, I don't think there is a, there is no chance that we stop working with each other. I think that this is too important very important, very relevant for our respective profession. So I'm delighted at the opportunity to speak about it, and of course working with Greg and the rest of the colleagues at ACMP, and to see initiatives like that happening, so that we can bring that very important conversation to more and more people.
Absolutely, and as Doug, as Doug just put in the chat, it's the conversation, and we're just at the beginning points for sure. I would just like to express just gratitude to Aurora, as I've gotten to know you and the ICF group there in Texas. Manny, for the incredible job that you and ACMP Texas does there in driving change as well too. And so thank you for sharing your times and talents to helping all of us become better within all of that as well too. And you are influencing people around the world. I completely, fully believe that, in terms of how Texas, Toronto, Ukraine, with your joint efforts, are making an impact. You know, certainly in the change community that I'm very active in, and I hear that, and you know, for just a little bit about, you know, ACMP, you know, we have over 40 chapters and communities in places all over the world, and I hear the pieces around coaching and change come through, and I think this team in Toronto and Ukraine are at the forefront in helping drive that, and so we just have more opportunities then as well too, you know, to engage those other communities in this now in a very important and fruitful discussion as well too. So thank you for just making that happen and for driving that and for being influencers.
Yes, thank you all. And thank you everyone who is on the task force, both locally and globally, for your commitment to creating this collaboration. With that, we will close out. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. To all of our ACMP and ICF participants, we appreciate you engaging in the conversation and helping to really drive the conversation that we're having together. We look forward to additional collaborations in the future. As it has been said, this is not the end, this is just the beginning. And with all the work that has been done, this is just a springboard to get us to to additional work in the future. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your time and your energy today, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, everybody.